Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 628 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our ninth book just came out. It's called From Letters to Leaders, The Legacy of Service. So I want you to go and pick up that book on Amazon today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, just like our next guest, I am a lifelong learner. I just finished my doctorate at age 50. I'm trying to show you that you can continue learning for as long as you want to go. And the more I learn, the more I realize I know absolutely nothing. Okay. There's such a vast world of information out there. It's just, depends on what your priorities are and what you're passionate about. So I encourage everybody listening to this podcast. I really want you to think about where you want to go in life. What do you want to learn about? And just go and do it. Forget about whatever age you are. None of that really matters. It just matters that you're passionate about finding out more information about those things that you care about. So let's talk to our next guest. Dr. Victoria Vaughn, a retired educator and a lifelong learner, found herself newly single at 55 after a 30-year marriage. Entering the senior dating pool, she discovered not just frogs, but full suitcases of baggage, from the talker and the narcissist to the bully, the cheater, and much more. Her memoir is called Oh, the Frogs I Kissed Before I Finally Found My Prince. Blends humor, honesty, and hard-won wisdom. With stories that are both entertaining and eye-opening, she invites readers to laugh, nod in recognition, and take away insights for their own dating journeys. Welcome to the show, Dr. Victoria Vaughn.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's my pleasure. I absolutely loved your book. I think it's fantastic. And I think people of all ages can certainly get some really great insights about dating, no matter what age you are. If you're in your teens or you're in your 50s, I think none of that stuff matters. I think you're going to ultimately find a lot of the same things out in the dating pool. And, when you find yourself single again at the age of 55, what was the biggest shock to you in terms of jumping back into this dating world? And how does that compare with what college students are facing today?
That's a great question. The dating pool was a little bit smaller because we're older. Whenever you're in high school and college, it's all, the life is your oyster, so to speak. But whenever you're 55, like I said, the pool is a little bit smaller. And secondly, it's filled with every pond is full of frogs, even the 22-year-old ones.
Mhm.
But as a senior, they come with something called baggage. They've had marriages, divorces, deaths, mortgages, kids, grandkids, etc. You
Mhm.
don't find that when you're 22, but you do find it when you're 55. So. And
Mm.
all of us have it. It's a fact of life.
Yeah, it's just a fact of life. I mean, when you go through, let's say, 30 years as a professional, certainly during that time, things happen. You buy a home, you have credit issues,
Right.
jobs, job losses, people come in, out of your life. All these things happen just over time, naturally to every single one of us. And your book, it's called Oh, the Frogs I Kissed Before I Finally Found My Prince. It mixes all of this humor, this honesty, this wisdom. So, when did you finally realize that all of these stories that happened to you might actually help somebody else, especially these young adults who are trying to navigate modern dating?
Well, that's a great question too. Actually, what happened was I did find my prince, and he relocated to heaven after we'd been married 12 years. So he had Parkinson's disease and some other issues. But I, I was actually grieving him, and I started thinking, I went through a lot of frogs to find you. I was just thinking to myself, and I started writing down some of those stories. And, pretty soon I had one, two, three, five, 10 stories. And I'd go back and I'd read them, and they made me laugh. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I gave that portion to a friend of mine, and she said, you should write you should probably publish this. And I'd never thought about that. But, you know, when after I got this book finished, I thought, I wish I would have had this when I started my journey at 55. Dating, all species have mating rituals, and dating happens to be one of ours as humans. So it doesn't really matter if you're 22 or 55. It's all the same. And there are ponds that have frogs that can become princes. And by the way, we can be frogs too. I mean, some of these guys that I thought were frogs, they might have thought I was a frog too, but because it does work both ways. But
Yeah.
so when did I realize it? I guess it was I don't know, 6 or 8 months into it. I just thought, yeah, maybe I should make a book out of this, and I'm glad I did. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, writing a book is just a really, really fun experience. We've written 9 books as a team here, and every one of them is a really fun journey that we look back on with great fondness. And it is interesting to me because in the book, you talk about these tadpoles, frogs, princesses,
Mhm.
princes, and I'm wondering for college students, what is that early alert signal? We'll call it the frog alert, that you receive that means that you need to run from this person. Like, what is the warning sign?
I get a kick out of this question. I'm asked this very frequently.
Yeah.
And let me just preface this by saying what may be a frog alert for you may be something very endearing for me. It's kind of like the fingernails on the chalkboard thing. You know, a lot of people are irritated by that. Some, it's no big deal. So I guess whatever, if there's a little something in the back of your mind that goes, this just isn't quite right for me, that would be a frog alert. And I think as seniors, and certainly as adults, young adults too, especially for a young adult who hasn't dated very much, somebody shows interest in you and you think, oh, wow, this is cool. I'm going to make this fit. Well, that would be a frog alert, even though you don't realize it, because you're trying to put a square peg into a round hole. And what happens with seniors is we feel like we're running out of time. I don't have as much time. You might be in the first half of your life. I'm in the last third of mine. So I gotta kind of figure this out. I hope this is making sense. I feel like I'm kind of rambling on. Does that
No,
make
that makes
sense?
total sense to me. Yeah, I mean, you got to figure out what stage of life you're in, and then you'll have different priorities, I'm sure, depending on that stage. So that makes total sense to me. And the other thing too is I find that a lot of college students struggle when they're dating online because there's so much misrepresentation. We call this catfishing for some of the younger folks, and you actually experienced this with Hickey who claimed that he looked like George Clooney's cousin, but then you see him and he definitely did not look like George Clooney. So, what
Yeah.
advice do you have for students in spotting this? We'll call it profile embellishment before it becomes a total disaster.
Nowadays, every student, every young adult has socials. I would cross-reference their socials, look on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all of those, and see what their story is. That wasn't quite as predominant whenever I was going through this was 20 years ago, by the way.
Mhm.
So I had the means to do what are called background checks, but college students don't have that. So what they do have at their disposal is the social networks, checking all of those to make sure that they're consistent, that their story is the same. And I guess, seniors can do that too nowadays instead of going through Truth Finder or Checkmate or whatever those things are. You pay a fee to find out about somebody's, convictions and things like that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, those are all things that you want to consider for sure. We should also talk about substance use, I think, because you dated Stony, the limestoner, and Barfly, the alcoholic.
Hmm.
College students will many times just normalize substance use and dating, just saying, well, I mean, that kind of comes with the territory in college. Everybody is using something, and that, by the way, is a complete misconception. I think, especially today's college students, Gen Z, they actually really prioritize nutrition and health much more so than some of the prior generations. So,
Goodness. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, abusing alcohol or drugs is not necessarily what is common in today's generation, even though you might think so. So, how can somebody tell when substance use crosses the line into a red flag?
Well, I'm well aware that high school students can gain access to just about any recreational drug there is out there, even some I've never heard of before.
Hmm.
A red flag, of course, would be any type of verbal or physical abuse. Um, I'm in Texas. Here in Texas, marijuana is a Schedule One drug. Even for the smallest amount of possession, you can go to jail for 18 to 24 months. And so I would ask myself, is this one night of fun worth risking my future? Because to me, it would not be. That would be a red flag. I would not want to jeopardize my future for one night of, hey, let's have some fun. And, I'm just talking about marijuana. There are a lot worse drugs out there. So certainly the physical and verbal abuse is one of them. Risking your future is another. um, and then, of course, the health issue too, because we don't, I'm glad to hear that nowadays kids are more concerned about that than they were in
Hmm.
my generation. My generation was the love generation. So it's like, love, you can't be with the one you love the one you're with.
Oh boy.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I think today, I mean, they're much more into health and nutrition, which is like so refreshing to me. But I still think there is a lot of thinking that, hey, everybody must be using alcohol and drugs in college, and it's just not true. That has been going down. If you graph it over the last 20 years, abusing alcohol or abusing drugs on a regular basis, these things have been going down steadily over the last 20 years, which is wonderful to see. So I
I
do
love
think,
that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I do think
awesome.
we're in a really good spot today. The other thing too is you actually dated a couple of people, Steely the narcissist and Craggy the two-timing cheater. Now, these are people that we definitely do not want to be around. So, what were the earliest signs that clearly you must have missed that today's college students should be paying attention to?
Well, you always need to pay attention to the conversation
Hmm.
because whatever they're talking about, and if every word out of their mouth, such as in Steely's case, he's the narcissist, everything was everybody else's fault. It was never my fault. That's definitely a class one narcissist right there. Craigie, I could never get a straight answer out of him. He was always lying because he was cheating. And so those are very toxic behaviors. And so that's what I would say, run. If
Hmm.
they're evasive, they don't want to talk to you about, introduce you to their family or tell you anything about themselves, or if they're always constantly talking about other people in such a negative way, there are other frogs in the pond. Go find another one because those are definite frogs.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So many of your stories are so hilarious, but also I think just very human. There were some uncomfortable moments and some unsafe experiences, like the surprise Hickey incident that was in chapter 9. So why do so many people, including these college students who are listening right now, why are they overriding their gut instinct in these early dates?
You know, Mike, if I could bottle the answer, I would bottle it. I would sell it. I'd be a multi-gazillionaire because that's just something that happens. In the case of as seniors, um, it's twofold. The pool isn't that big anymore. And secondly, we feel like we're running out of time.
Mm,
And for a younger kid, like especially maybe somebody hasn't dated that much, they don't have the breadth of experience to think about this. Um, whenever somebody starts paying attention to them and thinking, wow, they'd like to date me, um, then we start settling. We start putting the square peg into a round hole, and it's just not going to work. Because once you find your prince or princess, they're going to love you warts and all. And same for you. Like I said, what may be something that's not so great for a frog alert for somebody else may be very endearing to me. And that's what, God made us all very different. Um, so I would just say, um, if you haven't had that many dates, step back, take a deep breath, because there are other, the pond is pretty big for you guys. So
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about it. For as a senior, I would say, don't try to settle. That's the worst thing you can do is settle.
Hmm. You walked away from a lot of frogs in your
Hmm.
experience. So I'm wondering, when you walked away, what role did self-respect and self-knowledge play in your decision to walk away from these men who were clearly wrong for you?
Um, well, self-respect and self-awareness, that's paramount. If you don't have either one of those, a lot of people are not self-aware, but self-respect is something that you do have to make sure that you have. What happened for me was I realized that I'm worth it. I'm worthy of somebody's respect, but you have to realize that you are worth it, and they are worth it too. So um, self-respect and self-awareness is where it all starts.
Yeah, that's really important. I hope that the college students, take your advice on that and make sure that they hold those things very near and dear, the self-respect and self-knowledge, even when they might be feeling, oh, this person likes me, I should show interest back. If they see
Hmm.
that this is clearly wrong for them, I think it's better to, really cut the line and move on as quickly as they possibly can. And the other
Agreed.
thing too is you have this guy Wordy, the one who talked too much. That's somebody that every college student has dated at one point or another. So talk about communication habits. What should the young adults be avoiding, and what habits should they be looking for in a healthy partner?
Everybody likes to talk about themselves. I don't know what it is about what we find so interesting, but I would say listen, shut your mouth and listen
Mm.
to show interest. You can ask open-ended questions, not yes or no questions, but open-ended questions that's going to get them to engage. Um, Offer your own concise stories. Whenever you're rambling on and on and on, uh, you have to realize that maybe you've lost their attention span. And finally, pay attention to body language because they'll tell you if they're, let's get on with it. But I always found it was interesting. There's another guy in my book, Sexy Dad. He couldn't carry a conversation if you gave him two 10-gallon buckets. He just didn't have the capacity to do that. No matter how many open-ended questions I'd ask him, it was like he would answer with yes or no. And it was daunting. Um, so, but that communication is very important. It has to be two-way. You have to pay attention to what's going on around you and make sure that if they're not engaged, that there's something that you can do, which is pay attention. Ask them, what's going on? What can I do? And don't make it all about you.
Yeah.
By all means, don't make it all about you. I was actually married to a guy who was like that. He'd find a way to talk about himself no matter what. It was my 30-year guy.
Mm.
Great guy, very gregarious and friendly. But it was amazing to me how he could go into a room and capture the attention of just about everybody in there and start talking about him and how great he was. I never could do that. It's
Well, there
actually
are
kind of a
some
gift, a
people.
talent.
Yeah, there are some people that can certainly do that and capture everybody's attention. And then there are others that would much rather have the attention be on somebody else, anybody else but themselves, right? So sometimes those two people end up together, and
Right,
more often than
exactly.
not, right? Because it suits both of them
Right.
in a certain way.
Right.
So that is really interesting. But
By the way, he was not a great listener.
mm, yeah,
Wasn't a great listener.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But, it is
I
what it is.
I think you can get some of those clues early on in the dating scene with some of these folks in
Absolutely.
terms of what kind of a communicator they are. And I would just tell everybody listening out there that communication is really the critical part of a successful relationship. I think that's the paramount, right? Much more so than even looks, because eventually, people's looks are going to fade, and so that's not going to be a big deal anymore. It's really going to be, hey, do we have fun together? Do we have common interests together? Is this person a good communicator? All of those things are really, really critical. So, okay, well, that's very helpful. Now, you also learned that it's okay to go slowly, especially after the Hickey incident. So, why is
Yeah.
pacing so important in dating, right? Why is that important, especially for Gen Z who often feel so rushed with this hookup culture that I immediately meet somebody and I have to hook up with them?
Well, again, for seniors, it's because we feel like we're running out of time.
Mm,
We just don't have the time. And so I'm gonna go ahead and make this guy fit, even though there's something in the back of my mind saying, no, it's not gonna work. Um, but again, I guess I would say, knowing what I know now after having gone through all this, I would take a step back. And if there's something that I cannot abide in another person, I would walk away, even though I'm much older now and the pond isn't as big as it was, and I am running out of time. I'm just not going to settle, because this comes back to that self-respect thing.
mhm.
If you are settling, then you're not showing the respect to yourself that you need to make your life successful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. And I think it's sage
Right.
advice. That's you're really in a position now to kind of help others that are going through the dating pool, whether they're in their teenage years, they're in their 50s, what have you. I think you've learned a lot and you've shared a lot in your book that I think is going to help lots of other people. So I do agree with you. I think going slowly is the way to go. We're not, especially for the college students, right? I mean, we're not in a rush. We don't need to have a family tomorrow. You can really take your time with this and make sure that it's right before you jump in too quickly. Because I think all of that is important. I wouldn't want to waste my time with somebody that's clearly not a good fit for me. And the sooner we can figure that out, the better. But I feel like if we're getting other emotions, physical, encounters, then it starts to play with whether or not we're in there for the right reasons. And is this really a person that I see myself spending the rest of my life with? Or is this just like a one night thing? And then, I'm not going to see this person. So I think setting those expectations up very early, having those conversations and basically saying, hey, this is what I'm looking for in a relationship. What are you looking for in a relationship? And
Right.
having those conversations back and forth and listening to what the other person is telling you is really, really important. And I think you can set those boundaries from the very get-go to say, listen, I'm here to find somebody who is a long-term fit. And, I'm going to take my time with that. Is that okay with you?
Right, right,
Right.
right. And
And
by the
just,
way, I wouldn't ask any of those questions on the first date,
yeah,
because talk about rushing.
right,
Right,
right.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you can certainly keep it just, light and friendly, I think, initially. But then, as things start to pick up, just lay out those expectations. I think that's really fair for everybody involved. So
Definitely.
really good. I really enjoyed the book, and I think it's certainly going to help a lot of our listeners. So where can our listeners go in order to purchase your book and maybe connect with you if they have some questions?
Well, they can go to my website, ohthefrogs.com. Whoopsie, there we
There you
go.
go. Uh-huh.
They can buy it on Amazon. They can go to any bookstore and they'll order it for them. My website, I also have a frog test. And by the way, it's not scientifically validated, but it's just a lot of fun. So if you think you're dating a frog, you can go in and take the test, and it's self-scoring, and it'll come back and say, "Hey, throw this one back into the pond," or this is a possible prince here, or princess, whatever.
Mm.
Um, so you rate yourself. You rate the questions are always, frequently, sometimes never. So anyway, self scores, and like I said, it's not. scientifically validated, but it is a lot of fun.
There you go.
And the Prince score was based on my late husband, who was indeed a prince. Pretty high bar. But then you want it to be a high bar. This is somebody that you may be spending the rest of your life with. And you don't want to settle. By all means, please don't settle. And I know I've encountered people that have settled. It just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
They're still married or they're still with that person, but they're not as happy as they could be.
Hmm.
Again, it's about that self-respect thing as well.
Yeah. Great advice. Really good stuff. The book is called Oh, the Frogs I Kissed Before I Finally Found My Prince. There is that book. That's what that cover looks like. Go and pick that up on Amazon. And of course, you can take that frog test on Dr. Victoria Vaughn's website. And just in case you're curious, it is a lot of fun to take the test. So if nothing else, you'll just enjoy the process.
Right, exactly.
So, well, this has been great. Victoria, thank you so much for sharing your book with our listeners. I think they're going to find it to be a lot of fun and maybe get some insights into the person that they're dating, whether or not it's a frog or a prince. So we appreciate that. Thank you so
Thank you
much for
so
writing it.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this, it's really important. If you learned anything today, just share this episode with your chapter in a group chat, maybe, or share it on social media. You really never know who needs to hear this message today. And you just might find the right person who is trying to negotiate these waters here of dating and try to figure out, should I commit here long term or should I move on and find my prince? So you never know. This interview might help them. So thank you so much for being here. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.